is the most important and crucial period of your lives, for what you do now and what you decide now at this age may well determine which way your life shall go. And the question is whether you have a proper, a solid, and a sound blueprint. And I want to suggest some of the things that should be in your life's blueprint. Number one, in your life's blueprint should be a deep belief in your own dignity, your own worth, and your own somebodyness. Don't allow anybody to make you feel that you are nobody. Always feel that you count. Always feel that you have worth. And always feel that your life has ultimate significance. Secondly, in your life's blueprint, you must have, as a basic principle, the determination to achieve excellence in your various fields of endeavor. You're going to be deciding as the days and the years unfold what you will do in life, what your life's work will be. Once you discover what it will be, set out to do it and to do it well. Be a bush if you can't be a tree. If you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't be the sun, be a star. For it isn't by size that you win or you fail. Be the best of whatever you are. Finally, in your life's blueprint must be a commitment to the eternal principles of beauty, love, and justice. Well, life for none of us has been a crystal staff. We must keep moving. We must keep going. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving.
All right. All right. Thanks for letting me show that. I thought that was so awesome. And I was reminded a little bit of that today. I posted this on Facebook right before the call, but a friend of mine, he's African-American, his name's Nick, and he's older. He's like maybe 60, but I've been working with him for like 13, 14 years. He's found me properties over the years, but you know, he texted me and kind of talked about how, you know, this last week he's been reminded of different times where he's been door knocking and he's had a gun pulled on him a couple of, you know, 3 different times. And he just reminded me, you know, of that quote that I posted in the chat where that Martin Luther King, no person has the right to rain on your dreams. And hopefully for Nick, you know, those people didn't rain on his dreams. And I know he's still moving and you know, sometimes he hasn't been able to walk, you know, but he, you know, maybe he's been able to crawl. And I think bringing it home to this call is Sterling, I think for all of us, but for you, this kind of talks a little bit about your story that we're going to get into, right? Like, you know, nobody raining on your dreams, you know, you're chasing them. We're all chasing them and we got to keep moving. So anyway, Sterling, I'm stoked to have you on the call today. Thanks for joining. And I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so stoked to be here, and hopefully we can give some motivation, some wisdom, a little bit that I have, and help other people who may be struggling, trying to make ends work, just take that next step in their business.
I love it. I love it. So I'm going to kind of introduce you a little bit, and then I'm going to have you expound upon it a little bit. So I've known Sterling for maybe just about a year, right? Maybe even less than a year.
August.
And August, yeah. So Sterling and I met at Mike Baird's Smarter Tribe Real Estate retreat, bus tour thing. And I never really met Sterling, right? So a reminder to always be networking and always be joining groups that provide value, because in those groups you end up meeting really awesome people. And so we're going to talk about that as well. So I've known Sterling for not that long, but I've been really impressed in getting to know him. I've had the opportunity to help him with some funding on some of his deals. And also he recently, and we're going to talk about all this in a little bit more detail, but helped me with a property that I bought a couple of weeks ago, trashing out the place. So he's got a side hustle business, Trash to Treasure. where on the weekends or whatever, they'll go out and trash out homes. And so he did a fantastic job on a house in Glendale, Poplar Grove area that I just bought. So Sterling's 28. He's married. He's got a cute little 2-year-old. And he started his journey full-time, I guess, in January of 2019, flipping. And you know what? I'm going to maybe not go over all of your bio, because the reality is we're going to talk a lot about this. This is going to be more of a framework for kind of what we talk about. But what's cool about Sterling's story is he quickly realized the W-2 thing was not for him. And then it's kind of been a little bit of a struggle and a challenge to escape that W-2, right? And land on your feet running, where you can support yourself just by doing your own real estate deals. And so going from working 60 hours a week at the university hospital as a staffing coordinator, where someone else was dictating his hours, to transitioning in 2019 to and in the meantime, you did a little bit property management, right?
Yeah.
For Pineapple Property Management.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And then we're going to talk about this, going from January to not doing your first deal until August. That's a long time. And then from August to now, which is a very short period of time, you're on your 9th flip, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit in your own words. Tell us, I'm a little curious, because I think this will play into your story and your motivation. Talk a little bit about, where you were born, where you came from, maybe challenges you've had or whatever, and kind of to the point of where you're an adult.
Yeah. So I grew up in just downtown Salt Lake, kind of Glendale area, kind of a little rougher part of the town, west side of the tracks, and just where I always lived and grew up. Family all lived down there, and you didn't really escape that. That's where you stayed. That's where you worked. That's what you did. And I found a great job working at the hospital. I was pre-med for a long time, studied all day and worked all day and hated it. And really, I was working a ton and having no way to progress. I bet a lot of people have felt that way in their own W-2 jobs. You work so much, and yet someone gets to dictate how you progress, how you move up. And I couldn't move up, and I felt stuck. And if you have an entrepreneur spirit, feeling stuck is one of the worst things you want. And I realized I needed something different.
So did you go to college to get your degree in nursing?
Yeah, so I have it in kinesiology and pediatric research. Okay. So definitely using that every day now. But it was good, because that was kind of my path for a long time. And then I moved in kind of administrative role in the hospital. But the first opportunity I saw was when we had our baby. I had a lot of PTO built up, so I was able to take 2 months off completely from the W-2 job. And so in that time, I was just doing some real estate deals as a realtor.
So let's back up. When did you get your license?
I got my license 3 years ago yesterday. So in June 2017 is when I first got my license.
And so back then you were still working at the hospital.
Yeah. So I got my license expecting to do a ton of deals. 10 months later, I finally got my first one and learned a lot about, real estate school teaches you how to stay out of prison, not how to run a business.
Yeah, right.
So I had to learn a lot, like a lot of people, on how to actually run a business, marketing, gaining traction, and doing that. Took a lot of a learning curve and just trial and error in a lot of different.
But your first approach when you got your license, it wasn't necessarily to be an investor, or was it? Or was it more to just be a regular retail agent?
It was more as a side hustle. I was still pre-med. I was still working at the hospital. It was kind of like, here's something extra, so I don't have to pick up all these extra shifts at the hospital. So I can just do this on the side and make that extra money. That was the intention. And then during those 2 months that I had time off from the hospital, I was able to focus just on real estate. And I made more money in those 2 months than I made in a year at my W-2 job. And that's when something clicked in my mind. I'm like, I'm doing something wrong. I barely had to work for this. Like, you had to work as an entrepreneur, but I didn't have to clock in at 7 a.m.
Right. Every
single day. And I really changed that mind shift of working for myself and not working for someone else.
Yeah.
And so when I went back to work in July, I made it a goal to come January 2019 to leave my W-2 job and start out on my own.
Okay. So where did, at some point, maybe you weren't quite making ends meet, or you wanted to get into real estate as far as like, where did the property management come into play?
Yeah,
I just kind
so
of want to set this
property
foundation.
management was kind of the way I convinced myself I can leave my W-2 job.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I was like, I don't have a ton of going on in real estate, but you know, I want to do something more real estate related. So I found property management that I kind of went to, still kind of on a commission basis and working with them, and really working for property management, like, you know, just as a running the leasing department, we had this one landlord that we took care of his 100+ units. And we sat down one day, me and a couple other leasing agents, we calculated how much he was bringing in from those 100+ units. And that's when I was like, I am still in the wrong side of the business.
Right.
You need to be on the investing side, not the day-to-day property management or even the day-to-day being a realtor. It's that passive income. That's where we need to get to eventually. And
so I want to pause and go back a little bit. So forgive me if I kind of interrupt you, because a couple of things you've said are really interesting to me. When you talked about where you grew up in Glendale area. Don't give us your address, but give us. A lot of guys here have flipped are going to know your street.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like where was it?
You go to Franklin Elementary down there in Poplar Grove. You find the houses that people do drive-bys. You go across the river, and it's the house that we've had to replace the fence a few times from people crashing in, and just that little nook right west of 4th South. That's where we were at.
Got it. Yeah. So I've done a house on Post Street, Emery Street, right around there, right?
Yep.
So you said when you were just starting a minute ago, you're saying people don't really escape from that environment.
Yeah.
So this is where I think it's fascinating where your trajectory is, because a little bit I've known you, I think, and we're going to talk about this at the end, I think where you're going to be in 3 years will be so much different from where you're at even today. And where you're at today is probably a lot different from where you were at then. But like, what was kind of your mindset growing up? Like, where did you maybe feel like your ceiling was? Like, was it like, oh, okay, man, I'm going to just grind it out blue collar, and maybe I hope to be able to be a full-time renter one day? Like, what was that like growing up there?
My dad's, he's a stair builder, a craftsman stair builder. And so for a long time growing up, that's kind of what I thought. I didn't want to. I wanted to be more business oriented, or I guess not have to work that way. I saw my grandpa work building these homes and doing roofs till he was like 80. And we were all terrified he was up on a roof when he was 80, because no one should have to do that. Yeah. Because he's trying to make ends meet, because he had no money, no savings plan or anything. And I knew from a young age that I could not do that. Right. And I mean, thankful to my parents for like, raising me the right way to want to help me get out of that. I think I've always had that part of me, but growing up, I thought, I was going to go work in the contracting business, build stairs with my dad.
That's awesome.
But I got too many splinters. I didn't want to.
Well, at some point, you realize I want to trade results instead of time for money, right? You want to produce whatever kind of income you can from the results, not necessarily the time you're putting in. When I was first married, we lived in Rose Park, right? Like not too far from there, like Rose Park, Glendale. A lot of people lump those in as the same. And we weren't there that long. We were there maybe 2 years, but I found a really deep appreciation for kind of like the blue collar, everyday workers. So there's nothing at all wrong with that. I think it's awesome. Yeah. But I also realized for me too, it was like, I wanted something a little different, right? Just like maybe you had that inkling. Yeah. And then what I love about this is your mind starts going like, you've already mentioned it in your story so far, like, okay, looking at things from a different perspective, just like you were talking about from the property management company, and going, wait, he owns 100 of these. We're managing them for him. How much is he making? Okay, how do I get on the other side of the table, right? Like, how do I get on the other side of the table? Okay, so you're at the property management company. You've got your real estate license. Let me ask a question. Joey just asked in the chat, what made you originally decide to get your real estate license? Was it bigger pockets? What was your first actual introduction or aha of like, oh, I got to get my license?
We bought our house, and I remember talking to my realtor, and I'm like, hey, like, you didn't get paid. I didn't pay you anything. Like, do I owe you some money for helping us? He's like, oh no, I got paid. I'm like, like what, $100 or so, and he told me how much he made. I'm like, you didn't do anything for that money.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm like, all right, this is a pretty decent side hustle. And from that, I think was it 2 months later, I got my license.
Awesome.
Luckily, you know, my wife is super supportive. I come home with all these ideas, and she decides what can be shot down because it's ridiculous and what I can actually pursue. And I'm very grateful that she allowed me to actually pursue that. And that's how it all started. Yeah.
Dude, I love it. I love it. This theme will thread throughout the call is you are all about action, right? And I'm sure there's been times where you've acted and it's really, you've fallen on your face, right? But
yeah,
that's
definitely.
all right. That's all right. So, and then Steve, I think he's making a joke here. Did Matt Atkinson leave behind his peacocks from his flips?
Hey, those peacocks, man. I grew up watching those peacocks roaming those streets down there.
Yeah. I really, really like Glendale. Not to get off track here, but my parents, they were going on a walk the other day and they're like, we want to go walk past some of your houses. And I gave them the address for 2 houses in Sugar House. And I'm like, but if you're going to go by those, you got to go by my Glendale houses. And, you know, my mom still was like, well, where's that? And I'm like, come on, you know, like, you know, East Side Sandy people, come on, let's go walk a little bit down there on 9th West. It's a great spot. Okay.
No, I like that area. It's like it's my stomping grounds, and so I mean that's where I kind of primarily do my business down there. Just it's improving that little nook of Salt Lake.
I love it. I love it. Nothing wrong at all. I've a couple projects going on myself still right there. Okay, so then property management. Let's go up to where you're like, all right, I'm pulling the ripcord here. July 2019. What was leading up to that you thought, man, I'm in a spot here where we could pull this off?
So really the biggest thing was realizing that, you know, it would be rough to leave a safe W-2 job.
Yep.
But finding that, I think the key was I had that little bit of time off and I was able to focus just on real estate. And when I saw like, hey, this is what happens when I was able to even just put 20, 30 hours a week into real estate, I was doing okay. So I knew that when it came time to January, if I didn't have a W-2 job, I could make ends meet. Ideally, I would have had 6 months saved up to do so. But I was just starting off. I did not manage my money well, to say the least.
So do you mind sharing, go back to January of last year. How much money did you have in the bank?
Like $5,000. So
$5,000.
Yeah.
Wife, a house, a mortgage payment?
Yeah. So it was a sink or swim. And that was literally it. I quit. I made that goal. I hadn't managed the money well, but I knew I needed to get out of the hospital. I felt so stuck, and I can't stand that feeling. I always
What were
have
you
to be
making at
moving.
the hospital, if you don't mind?
Made like $40,000 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
I just felt stuck, and I tried for over a year to move up somewhere. And it just got roadblocked everywhere. Like, oh, go spend $60,000, go get your master's, then you can have this job and make an extra $5,000 a year. That sounds fantastic. No. So, you know, I quit the job and I'm like, I'm going to go hustle, make ends meet, work in this property management, try to find another deal. And it was still a while before it worked out. But
you mentioned here in your bio that there were, the transition was so difficult and terrifying at times. To be honest, we went through a huge portion of our food storage, but we were finally able to get to the point where we were okay.
Yeah. So that first, from January up until June, you know, I think the hardest thing as an entrepreneur is finding out what you're going to focus on that's going to bring in that income. And I was still trying to figure that out. And in the process of figuring it out, I was going so many different directions. I was trying so many different things. I couldn't focus on that one thing that would actually make me money. And we weren't doing great. You know, I wasn't really doing deals. I was kind of focused on this thing that was making me a little bit of money. And that was
kind of being an agent a little bit, right?
Yeah. And so being an agent a little bit, I think I was doing too much of the property management because I wasn't really a huge portion of income and required a lot and really wasn't bringing in the deals outside of that I needed to make ends meet.
Well, this is serendipitous. So that YouTube I played at the start, I didn't really realize that I was going to play that today, but really talks about, like, you need, like Martin Luther, you need a blueprint, right? Like
Yeah.
you kind of had a blueprint, but not really a blueprint, right?
Yeah, I thought
So
I had
this
a
is gonna-
blueprint.
Yeah, this is going to feed in perfectly to where you got a little bit of focus after a few months, right? You needed a blueprint. You
Mhm.
clearly had the self-confidence, but at times it was shaken, right? You're, I'm sure, second guessing yourself, going, what the crap have I done? You know, like,
Yeah, that
how's
was
homeless going to look for me? This is probably not going to be awesome.
I was so close to contacting my boss and being like, you know what, I made a mistake. Can I have my job back? And it was finally, I think it was in May, I finally did a real estate deal. But very end of May, so 5 months in, and we're like, all right, cool, we've actually got some money coming in. But yeah, we went through a lot of the food storage, a lot of soups and beans eating. And I had been talking about, so real estate investing, I kind of knew I wanted to do that stuff. I mean, my dad was in construction. I watched homes being built and being transformed. I'm like, that is so interesting. I love that transformation because I grew up with it. And finally, I remember I was talking about it, and my wife eventually was like, either do something or just stop talking. Because I was just doing it so often, like, look at this, I can go check out this house. What if I did this? I can make this. She's like, you just keep talking about it and you're not doing anything. Like, you need to do something or I'm just done.
Quit talking. I love this.
And I think a lot of us can get in that, you know, if you're trying to learn and everything, you get stuck in that analysis paralysis stage. I think all of us have been there. And there has to be a shift where you need to get out of that and you start taking those first steps.
I love it. So you tried a couple of different places to find some guidance.
Yeah.
Right. Some of those were free. Some of those
were expensive.
Expensive. So without slamming them, because I think there's value in everything, but talk about some of those.
Yeah. So my first venture into trying investing was I joined a group called Renatus. Had good real estate education. I'm, you know, one of my good mentors is still part of that group that helps me out like on a weekly basis. And for me, somehow things didn't click. You know, sometimes it can be like who that mentor is that you're using, or that you're not getting that right motivation. And for me, just didn't click there. But they had great motivation. Well, they had great content, good education that really helped me solidify some needed knowledge to actually be successful. And so I kind of did that for a little while.
Was this in after January or before?
Oh, this was before January. This was
last year. Okay.
This was
2018.
Fall beforehand.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that was one of the reasons I'm like, cool, I've got this investing I'm going to try doing. I've got this property management I'm going to try doing. I know I've got the real estate. I can leave my W-2. But like I said, I was split in so many different ways. You can't succeed if your mind is all over the place to begin with.
Yeah, right.
To begin with.
But you're trying, right? You're like grasping for like, how is this going to work?
Yeah.
I need to find something, you know, and that was an expensive buy-in, but it gave you a little bit of a foundation, right? And
it did. Yeah.
Got it. And you probably learned the value of networking if you hadn't already, because Renatus is a huge.
Yeah, I was not a huge networker before, and that was the thing. Like you meet up with people a couple times a week, and since then I've really expanded out how to network well, and it has made a huge difference. But it all started from that, and that was kind of like my first dip into networking and meeting more people.
It's awesome. And then what other places, because we're going to get to where maybe you finally got that spark to connect and have things click a little bit, but you'd go to the RIAs as well. And
they had they had the luncheons, they had Utah RIAs, slow RIAs, kind of guy that sat in the back, didn't really talk to anybody. Like, I'm just here to get some information, still really nervous about, saying who I was, and did that for a little bit. But that same thing, if you go to these meetings, you just sit back and you just watch and you don't do anything, you're going to get out what you put in, which was nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I did that for a while, probably a few months, and I just it died off. I just kept finding ways not to go, and eventually I just stopped going completely.
Awesome. And then, so when was your first flip that you picked up?
That was end of August.
The end of August. So this goes about the same time where maybe a difference for you happened, where you finally did encounter a group or a network, or specifically Mike Baird, right? Who kind of really talk about that. Like how did that, because I would bet if you would have met Mike maybe in the end of 2018, maybe it wouldn't have clicked the way it clicked a year later, right? Sometimes you need to go through some of those falling on your face or not quite going in the right door or like struggling until, sometimes you need some of this information, even though you're not acting on it, to kind of like sit in your brain, right? And be the foundation for when you're able to, have that match kind of spark something to go forward a little bit more aggressively with.
Yeah, exactly. So in July, I think like there was some Facebook thing going on where you can do a 30-minute free call with Mike. And I remember watching Flipman back when I was in high school. I'm like, oh, I saw that guy on that TV show. So I hopped up on a 30-minute call, and really it was empowering in that he had focused on something that I had never really thought about. And it was really that key thing of focusing on one aspect, find your niche, attack that. As entrepreneurs, we all have that tendency to chase that shiny new object, right? Yep. We all do it. We try not to. And that was what I kept trying to do. You can invest in so many different ways in real estate. There are literally dozens of ways. But when you're starting off, you need to find one and stick to that, because you can't succeed if you try to do it all. And
right. So maybe up to then you were thinking, I can be an agent, I can flip,
I can do everything. I can do everything.
I can do it all. I'll look at some commercial. I'll look at everything.
And I couldn't, and you can't. And so really that phone call, he helped me figure out like what my strengths were and to focus on those, find my niche, and really hound that one aspect and take action. He's like, you have the education. You're not doing anything with it. You can't expect success if you're not taking action. You need to do something. And I was like, no, you're right. And I still didn't do anything. But I did see that there was a bus tour. Like, so he had like this thing like a month later in August.
And this is when I met you.
Yeah, this is when I met you.
Yeah.
So he had the bus tour. I told my wife, I'm like, it's going to be a little bit of money, but I'm going to go do this. And once again, she's like, either stop talking or do something. And so I went there, and I wish I need to find my little planner I have. But in the bus tour, it was great because they brought together, dozens of these people and investors, everything from brand new people like me, just dipping their toes in the water, trying to start off. And then people who've been in the business for decades and have been trying different aspects of investing and bringing everyone together to kind of pump people up and help them meet their goals.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that. And as a quick aside, that's why I've really loved doing these calls. Because like last week we have Tim Watke on, right? Like that guy's just a freaking rock star. He's done so much. And relative to Tim, maybe as far as, time in the business, you're kind of like,
I'm a tadpole.
You're a tadpole, but like, I can see where you're going to be, and it's going to be awesome. And I also know from your personality, you're going to end up helping so many people similar to the way Mike helped you.
Yeah.
And so I think this is just super cool, right? Like, because now knowing you better, I didn't know your story beforehand, but from where you've come from August is really cool. And again, I'll keep saying it over and over again, like you have. The reason for it is action.
Yeah.
You generate that idea, you plant that seed, you start thinking about it, you start imagining, how can I get there and do it? And none of that's going to work if you don't act and do it. And you made some huge, scary steps, right? Like pulling the plug with $5,000 in savings and a kid and a house. Like that's just insane.
I don't recommend that. But for me, I think I needed that feeling of needing to sink or swim to actually take that action, because I was just so scared beforehand. I had a safety net. For me personally, I had to remove that safety net to actually
you need to burn the boats, and everybody's manufacturing adversity a little different for themselves.
Yeah.
The other thing and then we'll get right back on track, that I thought this call would be helpful for people that are even been around a long time, is sometimes like I've fallen into this trap where it's like, I'm just flipping, maybe doing some hard money. But man, I really want to own a 300 unit apartment building, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's like, okay, if I really want to do that, I need to follow like what Sterling's telling me, is I need to burn some boats, right? Like that may mean I need to abandon my flipping altogether, right? So I can just focus 100%. I've seen Jordan Atkin do it, where he abandoned his flipping to just focus on doing downtown development deals, right? Like, so you're fundamentals of like where you've come from, I think are so universal to any level of investing that's why I wanted to have you on, because at some point you do need to define that blueprint and just go for it. And then what I've found is once you get good at doing, say, flipping, it becomes a little bit second nature where you can then focus on, say, hard money, you know what I did, hard money lending, right? And then at some point, then the long-term rentals kind of go hand in hand with all of this. But if you get to shotgun from the get-go, like you said, you're just going to it's all going to sound really cool and you're not going to end up doing anything.
Exactly.
So talk about this. Will go into where, you know, you merge with Mike and the Smarter Tribe. Harry Payne, I want to keep, so Joey and Jaden are giving you props, of course, you know, about, you know, your courage and burning the boats and your guts. Harry wants to know, when you took that leap, many are so afraid to do so. What do you think is your why? Because this is probably coming into play here right about August, right? Like your why. Yeah. What's your why?
For me, my why is to provide for my family the way, man, I hate, so many Americans live paycheck to paycheck, right? So many people, they struggle. They're amazing, amazing people, and they do the best they can to make ends meet. And my why is to escape that for my family. And I knew it was possible. And that just pushes me each day. You know, if you got the skills, you have to hone in on those skills. And I feel like I had those skills to make it beyond that paycheck to paycheck. And I just needed to take that action to get there. So my why is my family. Every single day, that's what pushes me.
I love it. I love it. So talk about your first deal.
Yeah. So my first deal, went to the bus tour. I remember writing a little notepad because they gave us little notepads. I'm like, I'm going to get my first flip under contract by the end of the year, period. Done. That was my goal. I'm going to do it. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I remember talking to a few people. I remember talking to Matt Atkinson, talking to a buddy of mine, Derek Smart. And I was like, hey guys, yeah, like this is my goal. I haven't done anything, but I'm going to do it. This pumped me up. And one great thing that, you know, they talked about the bus tour was Tucker Ferwada. He does this. He's a social media guru, and he was kind of teaching a little bit about doing social media. And for me, my time was kind of limited with a lot of different things I was trying to do. I was like, there's one thing I can do is I scroll through Facebook, I scroll through Instagram, I can do some posts. And so I started doing some social media marketing.
So up until then, had you really consciously thought about how I could leverage social media?
No, not at all.
Leads and stuff like that. Okay, cool.
I was kind of on it. I did a little bit on like the real estate side, posting some things here or there, but it wasn't really anything marketing related. I used it as kind of a friendly, keep in contact with some mission buds, things like that. But that really changed the mindset. And so I started doing a lot of things on social media. And it was 2 weeks later, someone that I went to school with messaged me. She's like, hey, I think you're in real estate. My parents are in this weird situation and they're really in kind of trouble. Can you help? I don't know if you can. And I'm like, yeah. So we set up an appointment. We went over there, called up my friend from Renatus. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, help me. So he came over there and we got it under contract that night. We were able to help them out. And that was how we got our first deal. But that came from like one, I do a lot of social media. We'll probably talk about that in a bit. I do a ton of social media marketing. And that came from doing that just a little bit for those 2 weeks. I had someone contact me because they thought I was in real estate because I presented myself as that on social media. And that solidified in me like the power of marketing on social media. And it kind of all went from there.
Man, I struggle with that still. I get really self-conscious, to be honest with you. And I hate promoting like, oh, this is what I do, right? But it's so dumb because people want to help you. And if you don't tell them what you do, then no one's going to know. Just like, you know, if someone posted, hey, this is like, I would use people all the time. And I probably have services or, you know, needs that I get fulfilled somewhere else because I just have no clue, you know, what everyone does.
But but it's not self-promoting if you do it right.
Yes. And we're going to talk about that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I never go back and watch my videos because I will delete it if I do. So I throw everything up and I don't watch it again. That's there. That's for other people.
But again, it's so this is where like you lapped me with the social media thing because I was in those same meetings, listening to Tucker.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have, I mean, this is how pathetic I am. I still have a saved email from August that's already reading out to Tucker saying, hey, Tucker, this is my business. This is what I want to do. How can I do it? Right. Maybe these Zoom calls have kind of prompted me to kind of like
Yeah.
get out of my box a little bit. Right. But but again, you took action.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't very comfortable, but you took action and it resulted almost immediately into your first deal. But before that, it was purposeful, right? It was part of your blueprint as far as this is what I want to do. I'm getting a deal. And so you got your first deal as a result of, again, training and networking and learning new ideas and then implementing them.
Yep. Found the right person, got the right training. And then I think, I took the action to speak with Mike. I took the action to go to a bus tour. I was ready to start taking action. And for a long time I wasn't. It was just changing that mindset of, we see all these people that have been in the business for so long, like they are successful. How are they successful? Well, because they're taking these certain steps. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just follow what they do. Yep. And have that mindset of, if they can do it, I can do it. And as well, if they can do it, why can't I do it better?
Right.
And always have that mindset of, you just need to be taking those actions. You might take actions and it's not going to work out. We all do that. You have to go through that trial and error, but you're going to fine tune your system to where you can take those actions where it will progress your business.
Awesome. So cool. So then how has been the last from August? I mean, let's back up, because some people here maybe haven't put together their first deal yet, or if they have, they've done it with, a ton of help from someone else. How did you finance that first one?
Partner. So I am a huge advocate for bringing on partners. I, like a lot of people, you start off, you don't have any money, but the thing is, you got two aspects. If you've got to bring something to the table. And I knew I didn't have the money to bring to the table. I didn't have necessarily the expertise, but I had the ability. I can try to find a deal, and then I'll be at the property every day if you need me to. I'll run Home Depot runs. I'll do all these things. I had the other part of a flip deal, and that's what I presented. So when I would find these deals, my biggest thing was networking and finding the people that I knew can bring on the second part, which I did not have the money, and always partnering with them.
Got it. Yeah, you've been super resourceful, and it's the hustle and like, this is where I want to get. What do I need to do to get there? So Nora has a question about your repairers. You sound like you kind of had a background in construction.
Yeah.
So that was maybe not as hard as the money part of it, but how did you put together the first flip?
So a lot of that first one was definitely having a partner on board that helped with that. There was a general contractor, and I was there daily. I was asking questions so many times. So if you're getting into your first deal, I'm really a big advocate of not doing it alone. Bringing on someone that knows, who's been around, you can feed off them, and someone you can go ask 20 questions a day. And so it was a lot of asking questions and writing down. I'd like search up like Home Depot things, like here's how much this thing costs. Here's the square footage in the house. Now I can figure out how much this costs per square foot and how much this costs per labor for this. And just doing that one step at a time. Those first few flips, I spent a ton of time at each one, just getting my numbers right and just practicing those.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So then that transitioned into another, how did you start finding your other ones? I know in the ones I've been involved with you on, some of them maybe come from a wholesaler.
Yeah. So I've done
a
a couple from wholesalers, but of the 9, we've done 3 from wholesalers. The other 6 have all been from social media.
See, that is incredible. That is awesome.
Yeah.
You found 6 houses over the last little bit from social media.
Yeah. And these aren't paid Facebook. This isn't paid advertising, like sponsored thing that pops up. This is me just being myself on social media, posting things, following a little formula, and people reaching out on my messenger saying like, hey, I think you're in real estate. I need some help. Like there was a great one I loved. It was beginning of December. We had just closed on a new one. And so I took a picture at title, threw it up on social media like, hey, awesome. We just closed on our second flip. Super stoked to get this one going. And a friend of mine, it's like, hey, go by my dad's house. I'm like, I'm going to message you right now. So I messaged him on Facebook. I didn't have his number. I'm like, dude, your dad's trying to sell his house? I didn't know this. Like, what's his number? I'll give him a call right away. Got me his number, called him like 2 minutes later. He's like, oh yeah. He just barely texted me like 5 seconds ago you were going to call. I'm like, yeah, you're trying to sell your house. Like, do you have time now? Let's go look at it. And that was the thing. There's urgency, creating that sense of urgency. People's attention spans are so small on social media, right? You've literally got 2 to 5 seconds to capture their attention. And so in that moment, he was thinking about selling. Would he be thinking about selling in an hour, in a day? I don't know. So I was really honing in on that, went to his house, went through everything, and we ended up getting it under contract that day.
That's awesome.
And that was just like really amazing, because that post in that morning from closing on a deal and then being able to get another one under contract that same day was empowering.
So major props to what you learned from Tucker at Mike Baird's thing. That sounds like that's been life-changing.
It has been. Yeah. I talk with Tucker a lot, and we probably want to teach some people. If you haven't followed Tucker, he has a group called Passive and Profit. It's like Passive and Profit something. I have to look it up. But he does kind of a formula of how to present yourself on social media to.
Yeah. So Mike's asking that question right now. Maybe, this could be like a 4-day course, but give us the 5-minute version.
Real quick version is it's called the 3-2-1 method. So you have 3 lifestyle posts, 2 value posts, and 1 business post. Because we all have seen those people who are posting on Facebook every single day about business stuff. I mean, I've snoozed some of those people. I don't want to see someone constantly requesting business every single day. So you're not doing that. You're most of it, three posts of the week is just your lifestyle, you being you. So that you have 3 lifestyle posts, just presenting people as you yourself. A couple value posts, you need to give value to people. And so you're trying to give some knowledge that you may have that you're learning, and just share it with people, and people really engage with that. And then finally, after doing those, you then do a post for like, hey, this is what I do. Give me a call. I can help you. And just following that consistency. Like Mike Baird says, you can go to the gym, work out your bicep for 3 hours. You ain't going back to the gym for a couple of weeks. Not happening. But if you go every single day for 10 minutes, yeah, you're going to get results. And the same thing with social media. If you go and sit down, I'm doing these awesome posts for this week, and you get tired out and you stop, it's not going to bring anything. Yeah. But doing a post a day and just following this little thing every single day, consistency will bring you that success.
Will you take a quick minute and type in Tucker's name?
Yeah.
And then the 3-2-1, and then people can reach out to Tucker. Well, and you, right? While you're at it, quickly throw your info in there too. And so Grant asked about it, Mike's asked about it, and then and Mike's doing a good summary right there. Your 3-2-1, and then people can reach out on Facebook to you after and get some additional direction on where to go. But you've been doing that really, really well, and knowing what you're doing. Sometimes you know what you're doing, right? But you still enjoy it. I'm like, I want to check out what Sterling's doing at his house in, on Wasatch Avenue or whatever, you know what I mean? So, and then exactly. Nora, thank you for throwing that in there too. There so, well, cool. So that's great. So I think that is just so cool that you found that many houses. And so how have you managed? So what hasn't worked for you anyway? Not that it won't work for someone else, but what hasn't? You mentioned you've done Zillow. What other things have you done where you've spent money where it just did not work out for you?
There's some companies that say, pay us this much money, we can bring you this many deals and stuff, like ZBuyer, Zillow. I've tried doing a company who ran my social media ads, sponsored. They brought in some leads, but they needed so much nurture and care. And that was time that I didn't really have the system in place to handle those. And so they didn't really go anywhere. So I did a lot of time with that. I've done door knocking, cold calling, a little bit of cold calling, not a lot, but a lot of door knocking, door hangers, and I've tried all of those methods, and you'd spend so much money doing them. Yeah. And, I got 1 deal from door knocking once. Outside of that, not really anything. And I can make a post on Facebook in 2 minutes for free. Yeah. So that's kind of what I was like, I'm poor. I don't have money, but this is free. I can do this every day. So that's what kind of got me from that bus tour. There's so much different information. Cool. I can focus on one thing and do that. Cause you had people that are doing wholesaling, go spend 15 grand on running your mailers, doing your cold callers and all those things. It will work. Yeah, it probably will. I didn't have that money to get going on that, right. But I did have some time to make some Facebook posts and try that method. And so that's what I did. I didn't focus on the other things. I focused on that.
Well, and I think as you progress, this has now become second nature. Maybe you keep doing this, but then you develop other capabilities and resources where you can have the help to then maybe do the wholesaling, spend the money on the marketing, right? Like all of this will build off of each other. But going back to, what you're saying, keep it relatively simple, keep it laser focused. And then when it's working,
then
keep
you can expand.
doing it and expand. And then again, a lot of action and a lot of hustle and a lot of positive energy. Okay, so where are you at now? I know the other thing I've noticed with you when you're flipping, and maybe it's because you have the time, but you're in and out of your stuff like really quick, right? Like, so how many flips are you doing right now?
We have 4.
Awesome.
We try not to do more than that. Some depends on the partnerships. There's sometimes I've had a general contractor, but a lot of the time I just do the project management myself. Like other people have suggested, if you don't manage it, it'll manage for you. Yeah. So I like managing it myself with my time and stuff. I don't like to go beyond 4. So that's what we have. We have talked from a business aspect of bringing on a project manager later on in the future so we can keep growing. But right now we're kind of okay with where we're at on the number that we do at a time. And
you had just posted, I think the other day, that you hired, talk about how you're growing and why you've done that.
Yeah, like you mentioned, after you focus on one area, you can then, once you get your systems down where it's efficient, you can then grow some more. So we brought in on a driver, a cold caller, an acquisition manager to help bring in more leads. So my thing as well is it's all about lead generation when it comes to finding that house, and that's the hardest thing for everybody. And you can't rely just on the wholesalers to bring you those deals. And you're not going to get the best profit as well if you just rely on the wholesalers. And so our goal in that is to get closer to that private market to find even better deals, because we don't know where this market is going. And so we usually have, our number where we'll say no on a house and where we'll say yes. And, before, if we were thinking, we need 20, 30 grand profit, we're probably thinking we need 40, 50 grand now, just in case. And so we know in order to do that, we need to get more on the private market, private sector. And so we're just making those changes in order to keep the business flowing as the market changes.
So do you do any retail real estate right now? Or
I do. Yeah.
Just when it kind of comes?
Yeah, as it comes, as people refer them, we still do some. We've got 4 people under contract right now.
And when you say we, is it you or who is we at this point?
Yeah, it's me. It's me.
Okay. The we is me.
The we is me. Eventually we'll bring on a team member, but as of right now, it's just me.
Got it. So how valuable has having your real estate license been in your progression?
I love it because, I'm able to, it's helped me understand the value. In flipping, you need to understand that value, and it's just giving me that extra edge. I don't have to rely on someone else to tell me what the property may be worth. I've been able to get that education, have that training, and practicing it daily to where I understand value of a property. And, it does save on costs. I have to pay realtors and stuff, but it gives me that I can go to sleep at night peacefully, knowing that I understand my value as well. And it's not something I'm off on.
I couldn't agree with you more. I've always found tremendous value in having my license, and because sometimes it's not only your own deals where you're being exposed to seeing the values, but whenever you're running people around different neighborhoods as an agent, you see different things through different eyes, and you learn how to sell people what they want, right? Like a lot of times I remember seeing, wow, I really thought this was kind of a lousy house, but these guys loved it. Maybe when I'm flipping, I don't necessarily need to do it the way that I think it needs to be done. Not saying it's bad or good, right? But, just, sell people what they want to be sold, not what you want to sell them, right?
Exactly.
So you get that experience from looking at that. All right, cool. Well, dude, we are, wrapping up here with about 10 minutes left. I wanted to ask you a question because hopefully this will be something that we can, continue to ask ourselves, but then you can maybe look back in 3 years and just like you wrote on that notepad at Mike Baird's thing in August. But if we were to have this call again in 3 years from now, what would have to have happened in your life, both, professionally and personally, to feel like you've had success?
Yeah. So I think it was in the one thing I can't remember. I think we should all set those bag goals, big, hairy, audacious goals.
Yeah.
So in 3 years, I'd like to be able to say I've made $1 million in real estate. That's kind of my main goal. And then I want to run a team of real estate agents, have my broker's license, and be able to own one apartment building.
Okay, hold on. I'm putting this in the chat, bro.
There we go.
So you'll make 1 million real estate in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Team of agents.
Team of agents.
Okay. One apartment building.
Yeah, one apartment building.
Okay. What else was it?
I think that was it.
That was it.
That was it.
All right. So I guarantee you are going to hit all of those just knowing the way you are, right? Your progression. So it will be super cool to see. So what new skill do you think you need to learn or whatever? You know, what's going to be that next one thing if you know what it is right now to get to that point? I know what you said. The other thing was this one you can knock out like any time is your broker's license.
Yeah.
You just need a little bit more time of transactions, right?
Exactly. So, I'm almost there. I actually am hoping I might be able to take the broker's license in the year. So
awesome. I love it. Keep setting those little steps. And then
yeah.
On one of the calls I had, Laith Labata, a few weeks ago, he kind of coined the phrase, do the next, make the next right step, not the next step necessarily, but what's the next right step? So what do you think this next year, like as you break down those goals, what do you think is the one next thing that you might be focusing on? And maybe someone out here is already an expert in that and you guys can collaborate a little bit, just like some people have requested to, pick your brain a little bit.
Yeah. I think our next right step is to create a more efficient flipping process where I'm not as involved. Bring on a project manager that can handle the day-to-day basis so I can focus on what I'm good at, which is the lead generation.
Got it.
That's what our next step is that we want to take.
Is that where you're the most comfortable, is lead generation, or what part what ranking? Like you seem like you're very comfortable with the construction side of it as well, right?
I like the project management a lot, and I think I do it well. But I like chasing the deal. I like the lead generation and that negotiating. I love negotiating. You don't really negotiate a ton in project management, a little bit, but I know there's other people that can probably manage my projects better.
Got it.
And I feel like with social media and stuff, I do pretty well at finding the deals. And so I want to focus more on that. So next step is to bring on the right person that can handle the projects better than I can, so I can focus on what I like, which is even more better lead generation deals.
Got it. You want to be lead generation. You want to be in the kitchen with the family, the person that's selling the house. That's where you kind of get amped up.
Right now I work a lot with all the project management stuff. And so I want to get a point where, I can be in the kitchen with my family and spend those evenings, but I like the lead generation. But
you want to be with the seller. You want to be with the seller.
I want to be in the seller.
Negotiating.
Being in that seller's house with all the cats surrounding you and negotiating them and figuring out what their price is, what your price is. That's the dream. That's the best stuff.
Yeah, that sounds awful to me. But that's what's great about real estate is there's a different seat in the bus for everybody. And you don't have to be good at the same seat as someone else. Just like we're all different. We all have a different skill set. And so, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Just find that blueprint, drilling down on what you do best, having a ton of energy and excitement like you have. So that is great. Well, anybody have any kind of final questions for Sterling that they've been dying to ask here as we wrap up? And then I'll have Sterling kind of give some final comments and we will do this in 3 years, Sterling, to talk about your apartment, your $1 million worth of earnings and your broker's license and your team of agents. So I think it's awesome.
Cool. That sounds great.
Well, Sterling, thanks so much. I'm stoked to see what you do. And I've learned a ton from this call, and just a reminder to me to take action. Sterling, do you mind throwing in your phone number really quick?
So
Matt?
I'll text it right now. You can reach me there. I try to get back to people, but you can reach me anytime. Facebook, Sterling Harris. On Instagram, it's Harris Flips. We're actually starting a YouTube channel here in the next month or so. So that's Harris Flips as well. We'll keep people informed with those.
Awesome. So if you want to kind of like follow a little bit what he does with his social media, just simply obviously follow him. And then the last plug is to just give a quick plug about your Trash to Treasure. Because,
Yeah.
you know.
So our goal is to help other flippers who are starting off actually get started on their right foot with their flips. Sometimes it's hard to figure out how to get to that blank slate where you can start transforming that home. So we have Trash to Treasure. We're helping other flippers get in, remove all the junk, do their demo work, and we do it fast. We do it within a couple of days. We manage the crew, we manage the dumpsters, and hopefully we can get a week or a 2-week process nailed down to 2 days for you and help you get your flip that you may take 3 months to do. Maybe it'll only take you 2 months now. Save you some money.
Well, and I can attest to that. He just did one for me over the last 2 weekends. That was a gnarly house.
Mm-hmm.
And I am so grateful that you did it and I didn't do it.
That was the most disgusting home I've ever been in my life.
Now I just need to get the pest control people over there. It sounds like. So.
Yeah, you definitely need to get some good pest control people over there. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's keep moving, everyone. Sterling, thanks so much. Next week, and I'll post it, but I should have Tucker White. He's the CCMI president right now. He's been in the investment brokerage world forever. He owns some different office complexes. And actually, his story piggybacks off of Sterling's in that he went from to instead of doing flips, like doing his own, commercial level investment deals. And like I said, he's the CCIM of the commercial world here in Utah. So he's the president. So he's a stud. I did my MRED with him, and so I'll post that later. But Sterling, thanks so much, and everyone have a great day, and we'll catch y'all later.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.